Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will learn how to modify grid container properties to design responsive layouts. Say we have this list of movie posters and what we want to do is convert it into this grid where in each row we have 5 columns for desktop screens, 3 columns for tablets and 2 columns for mobile screens like this. Alright, so let's get started. As I mentioned in the previous video, so to make a division grid, we need to use this display grid value. So let's start with that. Let's bring up our code editor here. All right, so this is the div which wraps all the other items. So we'll have to give display grid to this division. So coming here, so because that was an ID, so hash, let's say display grid. And as you can see, nothing happens. This property is used to tell browser that this div and its children will follow grid layout rules. And giving a div display grid changes nothing by default. But now we have access to all the grid properties. Let's say now we need to define how many columns each row should have. For that, we have this property called grid template columns. Let's use it. Let's say grid template columns. So here we can define the number of columns we are expecting in each row. Let's say we want 4 columns and all these columns should take equal width. Or in other words, say we want 4 columns and I want the entire width to be split equally amongst these 4 columns. So what we can do is we can use a value auto. So this defines split all the available space equally amongst the total number of columns that we define here. So let's say auto again, and auto again. So we specified this value 4 times. So what this means is define 4 columns in a row and give equal width to all. So let's save it. And now as you can see, we've got 4 columns in a row. Let's try adding some space in between. So as I mentioned earlier in the previous video, we have this property called row gap, column gap, and grid gap. So let's try using those. Let's say grid gap 16 pixels. So there's just now a space of 16 pixels between our rows and columns. Or we could say row gap, say 32 pixels. And as you can see here, there's a space of 32 pixels between these 2 rows. Similarly, let's try increasing the column gap, let's say 48 pixels. And as you can see, the space between these cards is, or these columns is 48 pixels. So let's just bring it back to 16 pixels. Now, what we needed was 5 items in a row. So to make that, what we can do is simply just add one more auto here. Let's save it. And as you can see, we've got 5. Say we needed 6, so we could have one more. And this would give us 6 columns in each row. All right, so let's just bring it back to 5. So right now it's divided equally amongst all the columns. Say we wanted to give specific widths. Say we want the first column to be 300 pixels and second column to be just 100 pixels. Third column to be, say, 250 pixels. Fourth column to be 500 pixels and last column to be 150 pixels. Let's save it. And as you can see, all these different columns have different widths because we've defined different width for these columns. All right, so let's just bring it back to auto for now. So let's say auto, 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 and auto. So we've given 5 autos here, that means 5 columns. All right, so that does the job. Now, and as you can see, the entire grid is spanning across the width. Now let's say we want everything to be in the start. So we could do justify content and say start. Let's save it. And as you can see, nothing changes because we've specified the grid to take the entire width. So for that, let's try changing the width for now. So let's say instead of these autos, let's give them 150 pixels each. So we needed 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's save it. And as you can see, my entire grid is in the start, so towards the left. Similarly, say I wanted everything to be at the end or the right, so I could simply use this value end. Or I wanted my entire grid to be in the center of the screen, so I could just do center. Or let's say we want to utilize this left and right space. So for that, we could do, say, space between. So all the space will be divided equally in between these columns. So as you can see here, or we wanted the space to be around. So in that case, we could do space around. And now we've got space on the left and right side of the grid as well. That's how you can align your grid towards left, right, center, or add space in between or around. All right, so now let's just bring everything back to the way it was. So let's just remove this justify content. And instead of this 150 pixels, let's make it auto. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Let's save it. And as you can see, we've got these 5 columns in each row, or these 5 cards in each row. Now moving on. So what we want is to have just 3 cards for tablet screens and 2 cards just for mobile screens. So for that, we can use media queries. So let's add a media query here. Say media max width, say 900 pixels, and we want to control the number of rows. So let's just copy this for now and paste it here. So this value is going to stay the same. But what we want is we just want 3 columns. So we can remove these extra 2. Let's save it. Let's inspect and try opening it on an iPad. So coming here. And as you can see, we've just got these 3 columns. Similarly, for mobile screens, we just want 2. So we can add another media query. So media max width, say 400 pixels. And let's just copy this. So instead of 3, we just need 2. Let's save it. And let's try changing it to MotoG4. And as you can see, we just got 2 in each row. Or say we just wanted 1, so we could remove this also. And we would just have 1 in each row. And guys, that's how you can use grid and grid properties to design responsive layouts. That's all for today, guys. If there's something that you did not understand, feel free to drop a comment and we will discuss it. See you in the next video. Bye and take care.